Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Kenton Wakes Up. I'm Dr. Kenton. It is Monday, July 7th, 2025. In the cup today, Mayorga Cubano roast black. It's unadulterated today because I have to drive to get my blood work done, and it's still before 8, and I don't think the blood drawing facility opens until 10, or at least for my purposes. Um, anyway, over the weekend, long weekend. Friday was July 4th, so most people, I guess, would consider everything after Thursday is July 4th weekend in that case. There was massive flash floods in Texas, and as of now, the latest number I saw is that 72 people died. And one of the major topics of conversation is who's at fault. Now, the the argument started in earnest with the police press conference, suggesting that the National Weather Service had dropped the ball and that all these people could have been saved if only the National Weather Service had done its job and warned people of the severe weather coming. Right? That's one side of the story. Another side of the story, I did not say the other, I said another side of the story is that people looked at the actual National Weather Service reports for that region and found that the National Weather Service, in fact, did send multiple reports warning people in the worst affected area that flash flooding was likely and please evacuate, seek higher ground, whatever the wording is they used. Right? So that seems to be almost the opposite. That's all I'm going to say about that. The larger issue to me is instead of arguing who's at fault, how about we get down there? How about people that are available to get down there and do something to help? My mentor, when I was in the dean's office, said, fix the problem, not the blame. That seems extra prescient, useful. As I just, and people start, sending the ping pong ball of rhetorical slam dunks to mix metaphors that, ha, gotcha. Yes, the National Weather Service warned everybody. Ha! If the Trump budget allowed the National Weather Service to keep its full staffing, this would have all been better. If Trump had allowed the remediation efforts to be fully funded, this would have been all taken care of. Let's not try to figure that out. People are still suffering. And the miserable cusses who suggest that perhaps because that region of the country voted for Trump that they probably deserved it. I'll remind everybody, I think it's 11 people who are subscribers to this channel, that my viewpoint on that is that human beings have an innate dignity that must be respected. You're not allowed to discount somebody's humanity just because of where they came from, what they look like, what color their skin is, how long their hair is, what color their hair is. There's nothing external about somebody that takes away their basic humanity. That's my belief. So when somebody has a human problem, being the victim of a weather-related flash flood, let's not. Can we can we skip the part where we start trying to lay the blame on somebody? Can we skip the part about woulda, coulda, shoulda? It doesn't matter. It's over now. The flooding has occurred. Let's help people as much as we can and skip the rest. That's ridiculous misuse of time and resources and people's attention who are trying perhaps to inform themselves. But it reminds me, every one of these things eventually boils back to something that I remember from my own personal experience. And it's two things. First one, second one was the widespread flooding of the, I guess you'd call it the, whatever. It was Iowa and some places, well, it's Iowa and the entire Mississippi. Um, the Iowa River flooded because of 40 days of rain, and some places north of Iowa City flooded. That time, the spillway at Coralville Lake didn't get over topped, but the flooding was pretty bad. And I remember this was in the summer of 1993 that some of the televangelists got on the TV and suggested that Iowa City specifically deserved it because there's so many godless heathens that live there. As if Iowa City was the only city that got flooded. The entire Iowa River watershed flooded. I remember digging a sump hole in the basement of my ex wife's mom's house so that we could pump water. There was a foot of water in her basement. Not just Iowa City. And I would bet you that if you looked at the election politics map of Iowa at that time, there's a lot of areas of Iowa that were affected that were actually full of Christians. Let's not try to explain weather related phenomena based on human religious preferences. Let's not. Let's not assign blame. Let's fix the problem. And I believe that the recourse at the time was that given the nature of the event, 40 days in a row of rain is not something that happens regularly. I mean, I think they called it a 500-year event or something like that. And so when looking at remediation efforts, like building dams or having outflows scheduled and so forth, that they determined that there really wasn't a whole lot that could have been made better if they made made any kind of changes. The rain event was so broad and so extended in time that I don't think they really did anything remediation wise. Then I don't know what it was. It was in 2010, summer of 2010. They got hit again. This time worse. The Maybe I'm misremembering. It was sometime between 93 and 2010 that Iowa City got flooded again, so badly that they evacuated several of the buildings along what they lovingly call the floodplain. Um, the University Union building was flooded. Everything that was previously in the Union got moved to an otherwise mostly abandoned. Um, I want to say it was like the Capitol Center or something. It was a mall that was in Campus Town. I'm getting the names wrong. But in any event, the spillway got overtopped in this case, revealing that giving new credence to the fact that Coralville was called that because it was a coral reef during the Devonian Age, which was something like 600 million years ago. Maybe I'm getting the numbers wrong, but really long time ago. The spillway, when it overtopped, the water rushing over the spillway scraped off all the topsoil and trees and everything from the park that was nearby, revealing that it was the entire ground surface was um, mollusk fossils embedded in sandstone. So yeah, we got weather-related catastrophes. Let's not lay human blame for weather-related catastrophes. It just brings to mind the feeling that the American uh, instinct is to try to assign blame to somebody so that you can excuse yourself from having any kind of feelings or possession of the problem. Oh, it was that guy, some faceless weather forecaster who doesn't have a job anymore. It's his fault. So I don't have to fill sandbags or, offer some of my unused clothing to provide some sort of or any sort of comfort to these uh, people who are affected by the 19 inches of rain, 22 inches of rain, whatever the number was. It doesn't matter. The flooding occurred. People did give some heads up. Whether the people acted on that advice or not is really not the point. Let's not argue about that. The issue is that people, a lot of people died. Christ Almighty. In chronological order, the first thing that occurred that reminded me of this was this phenomenon of trying to lay the blame. Was there was a campus shooting on University of Iowa's campus? I believe it was 1992, November 1st, October 31st, November 1st, 1992. I was not Okay. I was intending to drive from Iowa City to the Mars to see my sister in a musical. She was still in high school. Um, and Mother Nature had other plans. We made it to Brooklyn, Iowa, about less than an hour from campus. Snow got so hard that we couldn't get off the road, couldn't continue. So pulled off the road, off the interstate, and stayed the night at the Brooklyn I-80 truck stop on the floor in the dance. There was a dance floor just off their dining room. Um, Woke up the next morning to find that a Chinese graduate student had shot several people to death, including himself. And the part that reminds me of this trying to assign blame situation is that everybody started wondering, how is it possible that a foreign person could have legally obtained firearms? Unfortunately, for that point of view, the Constitution allows people to possess, buy and possess firearms regardless of their citizenship. And it wasn't, the situation wasn't that the guy was disgruntled, went downtown, bought himself a handgun or two, and came back later that day and shot these people. No, had had the guns for several months, or maybe even more than a year. I don't know. I don't remember those details, but I do remember the the first instinct of people was to try to find out how this guy got his guns, and they found that it was at this place called, I want to say, Fin and Feather gun store. So everybody's all upset. Fin and Feather. Oh, you gave this gun to an illegal person who shouldn't have had it. Well, turns out the kid went through the background checks that were mandated at the time and legally obtained the firearms. So everybody's all upset, still looking for someone to blame. And then they decide that perhaps the issue is that the Chinese Student Association on campus was aware and they didn't do anything to tell anybody. Somehow, Chinese plot, conspiracy. So I remember the Chinese Student Association had a press conference to disavow the kid, to suggest that he's never really been a part of the student association, never really was a member of any kind of social interaction with other Chinese students. Mostly was head down, doing his work, not very much of a social person, kind of an awkward guy, and so on. Which, after the police investigated it, they determined that that was largely the case. Kid kept to himself, had delusions of, pretty girlfriends and so forth. That people are nice to other people, and he misunderstood that. So anyway, the thing is that people don't want to just assume that a kid, they don't want to accept the official word. Uh, I think that they intercepted some letters and packages that he was sending to his family back home. And they, in there, determined that had this, he had, he felt that he was supposed to win an award for his research, and somebody else in his lab wanted it instead. And it was basically jealousy. And unfortunately, three senior members, well, three members of the physics faculty, uh, a graduate student, his enemy, his nemesis, whatever, an assistant vice president, and the admin assistant for the assistant vice president, and then this kid. So 6 people. But the impression was to try and lay blame. Oh, it's the Chinese Student Association's fault. It's Fin and Feather's fault. It's da da da. As a result of that, not while I was at the University of Iowa, but in the meantime, the campus police now are allowed to carry lethal weapons, handguns, where before they were not. If there was the need for uh, lethal force, they had to call in either the state police or the local Iowa City police to assist. But anyway, it's really frustrating that there's a major catastrophe, and the seems like the first instinct is always to point the finger rather than to find a reason to help. Anyway, today's Monday. Monday's ordinarily for meetings. I don't know what's going to happen with respect to meetings today. I've got to skedaddle here in a bit to go get my blood work done. I'm going to work on campus today for a while and see how that goes. Otherwise, that's pretty much it's pretty much my itinerary for the day. I hope you have a great day. Love you. Bye.